In the past couple of months, I have been asked for a full video on the PARD NV008 LRF and the P, showing what it does, how it does it, and if it does it well. So it's taken me a couple of weeks to do it properly, and here it is. Can you now easily hunt and plink at night? The answer is a big yes. Watch on. Hello there, welcome to the AirgunGear show. Now this is night vision, and while we are called the AirgunGear show, this scope can actually go on rimfire and centerfire rifles. So airgun, yes, but powder burners, it's also worth watching on. There's a lot of information here for me to give you. PARD has been around for a few years, but now it's official in the UK. It has a distributor and it's passed the relevant standards for import and use. The PARD NV008 comes in two versions, the standard P model and the LRF model. The difference is the LRF has the laser rangefinder on the side, which allows you to range your target and it registers on the screen. I've tested this out to 130 yards or so and it works well. It actually registers approximately a few inches to the right of the target, so you have to move the detection beam over the target to get a reading. But that's the difference. And no, if you buy the standard P model, you cannot add the LRF part at a later date. And I know someone out there will say that you can, that's YouTube, that's how it works. Of course, the laser rangefinder ups the price, but shooting past 50 yards, I would guess that is going to be useful. Now, early versions of the PARD, before it passed for sale legally in the UK, they had a laser built in, somewhere around there, and those are now a no-no for retail. So, no laser pointer on any PARD models. If you want one, eBay and clip it on the side, but that's your choice. Outside the UK, who knows? I'm not outside the UK, so any PARDs still on retail in the UK with a laser, buyer, caution, approach with care. It's a very simple design, rectangular looking, and uses the included bracket to mount onto a picatinny rail. Now, it's a pic rail mount, so if you have a dovetail on your rifle, you get yourself a converter for a few quid. Now this mount needs to be shimmed. Two small shims are included, but that may need to be added to by you, or you get your hands on a windage and elevation mount, which is an extra cost, and you use that. I've used the standard mount, it works well, takes longer to set up than the adjustable mount, obviously, but you have to understand, air guns have a drop in the pellet trajectory, so you have to shim the scope to get the zero. There is a level of adjustment within the scope software setup, but to gain full use of what the PARD can do, I suggest getting the zero as close as possible through the mount before you start adjusting the software reticule. Throughout the video, I have used the additional mount. It does make life a lot easier, but the included mount is fine. It's your choice. A bit of time and patience with that one, or a quick and simple setup with that one. In there is the eye screen or the display. It's upgraded from earlier models and it's clear and crisp, and you just need to get the eye relief correct and it's easy to use. The distributor quotes 1024x768. However, the video recording is at 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second. There are 2 points of focus to help your eyes. First is at the front, just here. And what that does is it brings the image into focus downrange. And then the eyepiece focus, which helps you focus your eye on the actual screen inside. Once you've set that eye focus, that should be it. When you zoom and change ranges, the front focus needs dialing, just like a parallax setting on a regular scope. On top is the built-in IR illuminator, and that can be set to 3 different power levels. and it can be zoomed and widened by adjusting the lens at the front. And yes, this is good to 100 yards and more. It works really well. It's way better than many IR illuminators. But if you want to go super bright, you can add more if you want. Get yourself an external unit. But really, for most of us, this is going to be enough. And again, the manufacturer quotes 5 watts. Here we go then. Charging the PARD. This bit makes the internet melt. It all runs on an 18650 lithium ion battery. Now, some say you can charge via the USB port, and some say you should never do that. I have been charging via the USB port using an Apple adapter, and I've had no issues. However, it seems there is nothing in the manual about that. Actually, there's nothing much in the manual at all. So what to do? Well, all I can say is an external charger will save your PARD if the battery or the charger ever goes wrong during charging. Plus, the external charger will charge faster and deeper, giving more runtime in the battery. And you can use a third-party battery, which I would never charge in my PARD. I have asked for a ruling from higher powers, and what I got was USB is okay, but an external charger is better. The internet wants a ruling. So I'm saying from today, 24th of February 2021, I am going to use an external charger. It will finally settle the discussion. I don't actually know which is right and which is wrong, but for 6 days I've been trying to get a definitive correct answer, and I of course await the comments below. But I do know I have lost electrical things on charge before due to power spikes and overheating, and an external charger is just over 10 quid. If it makes the PARD run longer and safer when charging, I'm going to go with the external charger. Now, please, let's move on. How long does the actual battery last when it's charged? Well, I can go out for a good 3-hour stint switching on and off and scanning, and I have not run out of a full charge yet. It has a massive runtime over my previous scope, the ATN Excite 2, which eats AA batteries like I do with pizza. Gone in minutes. Slots at the side for mini HDMI and a data transfer port for the computer, which when plugged into a computer can also be used to collect your files off the SD card by powering on the PARD and selecting mass storage. Now the system says up to 128 gig on the SD card, but mine seems to like only up to 32 gig cards. You will also notice all the official PARD units are serial numbered to track and trace them. So if yours arrives with no official serial number, it's not official. Fixed zoom at 6.5 or 13, which is switchable by pressing the front button on the side. Throughout the video, you will hear me say 6 instead of 6.5. It's 6.5. It's just me losing the ability to remember the 0.5 every time. I shall wait for the first person to comment on that down below. Quick on power button on the side, and you can set defaults on turn on. So if you want immediate recording in IR mode with 6.5 mag, you can set it. I want to cover the basics on this scope and the things that I've discovered because the manual is, well, basic. Rubber buttons on the side giving simple navigation on the menu system, and that menu system is easy to use. Basically, it's set using plus and minus and holding OK to save. I never had an original PARD, but I'm told the new menu and system on these units is much better, and I've had this out in the wind and the rain and have had no problems with it. The main area in the menu system is zeroing, and that is easy, and the options allow for different ranges to be set. Let me show you. To guide you through the menus, I am recording this through a television screen because the PARD does not record the menu system and other gauges when you're using it as a recording unit. Let me show you how you can zero the rifle and adjust the reticule for different ranges. I've currently got the rifle zeroed on this screw head here at 25 yards on this upright just there, and it's right on 0 right there. The only way I'm adjusting that 0 now is by adjusting the mount, and that is turning the Allen screw up and down, because what I want to do is get that as accurate as I can before we even start. Now, if you're using the included mount, you've got to do this through shimming and balancing the scope out to make sure it points in the right direction. That's why these extra mounts are so well worth it. And I know I'm not quite level and flat, but this is just for the purpose of making the video. We're going to go into the menu system now, and we're going to go to the reticle adjustment setting just there. And we're just going to change that back to A. And if you notice, on A, we haven't made any adjustments. We're on 0, 0, so it's dead center. And like I say, you would test fire and 0 to your group at this point using the extra mount. Now, you're then going to want to shoot at 50 yards. So you're going to turn the gun and you're going to aim at, let's say, this little bolt or screw head just there at the top of the plate. So we've now got to encounter pellet drop. If our point of aim is there at 50 yards, when we shoot, the pellet might hit down here where this other bolt is. So this is now not zeroed to the correct range. So what we do is we change the profile, because we don't want to adjust this one, because this is our 25 yard profile. We change that and we select B, so it's a different profile. And we go along, and very cleverly the system will take a photo when you start to make an adjustment. Right, so we're trying to hold the rifle and do this. When you press to make an adjustment, it automatically takes a photo, so you can then adjust by pressing the buttons and bring the reticule down. These numbers at the bottom, you've got up to 300 to play with. So there we go, nearly there. That's going to be pretty close. And then we can change the style of our reticule for 50 yards, look. Let's change it to that one. Then we can change the colour for 50 yards, and then we can hold down and save. So what we've now got is our B profile is 50 yards. If we change that to A, it immediately brings us back to our 25 yard 0. So when you're shooting and you know what your ranges are, you can adjust your reticule in the setting to the range you're shooting at. And the system will store up to E in profiles. And this here is the default magnification when you turn on. And that's at 6. And that's at 13. And you can see the reticule does move down the screen because you've zoomed in. Straylock has some reticules on board in the app. So if you find yourself between profiles and distances, then you can always hold. Pressing the menu button, let's have a look at some of the other options that come up. And you navigate by simply pressing the plus or minus buttons. And it's quite easy. You can do picture in picture, which is there. And you can put shortcut keys to it. But picture in picture on, and we'll demonstrate that in a moment. Then you've got your reticle adjustment gyroscope, which is on the screen. And you can choose whether you have it on or off. And let's set it to on. Your default magnification, so that when you turn the scope on, you can tell it whether you want it at 6.5 or 13 power, like that. Let's have it at 6.5. Default color, you can decide whether or not you're going to switch on in color mode or black and white, which is basically the IR mode. Let's change it to color. You can change the brightness of the infrared just here. I find 2 works quite well. And then you can change the brightness of the display itself. You can change how you detect your ranges, and then going on down you can tell it to auto record, so that when you first turn the scope on with the power button it starts to auto record. You can decide whether or not you have it record in segments. Date stamp is very important. If you don't have the date stamp on, it will not record the reticule, so the markings on the screen and the details that you see. So if you have that off, it just records like a standard blank screen scope. So you have to have that on. You can choose whether you record audio or not. Beep sound for warnings and keys. Then you have Wi-Fi, which you need to switch on if you want to connect to an external app. I'll explain that in a moment. Exposure for the camera. You can change the language. You can select the date and time, which will auto set if you connect it to an app or the internet, or you can do it manually, like that. You can format the SD card. You can go back to factory settings, and that one tells you what firmware you're using. So there we go. So that is a very, very simple menu system. Here's the picture-in-picture box at the top. I'm currently on the main screen at 6.5 mag. I think that picture-in-picture box at the top is at 13 mag. If I go 13 power on the main scope, that box up above gets magnified even more. And that magnification is digital, so it can get a little grainy if you get a bit carried away with it. Now, I'm not a fan of the picture-in-picture, so I'm simply going to go in and I'm going to turn it off. There we go, and come back out. On the right-hand side of the screen, you've got a gauge that tells you how much you're canting the rifle, look, like that. And you've also got the little black boxes which call the numbers out as well for you. And I'm not quite back there yet. Let's go, there we go. And then on the left-hand side, you've got a gauge that tells you how much you're tipping the scope up and down. Like that, look. There we are. And then you've got a little black box below which tells you the numbers nice and clearly. And then let's put that back to 0. There we go. At the very top you've got a compass which works best outdoors, and in the bottom left hand corner it tells you whether or not you've got your Wi-Fi on or not, and the bottom right hand corner is your battery level. Be amazed, the wind's blowing a gale, but it's actually stopped raining for a minute out here on the range. This is Bob. You've all met Bob before, and I'm going to put Bob out at 25, 50, 75 and around 100. It's going to be within a few paces of those yard markings, and we're just going to get some images of Bob at night and see what he looks like if he can stay upright, and then we'll also compare it to how he looks during the day. Here we go. So for those of you new to night vision, the night vision image is in the top left hand side, and night vision records basically in black and white. That's how it comes across. The daytime image, the color image, is in the bottom right hand side, and as you can see, that daytime image has got some really good colors to it. In fact, you can make out the different colors on the trees and the hedges in the background. So the sensor is really picking up on those colors very nicely. And again, with the night vision image, you can see exactly where you're shooting, and you can make out what you're shooting at, even at the longer ranges. The unit comes with Wi-Fi built in, and you do not need to configure it in the system at all. You just turn it on, let your phone or tablet find the PARD Wi-Fi signal and join with the default password, which is amazingly. Now, PARD do not supply a dedicated app, so you have to use a remote viewing app, but don't be daunted. These are very common now. I use Dash Go. It's a download on your app store. It will not allow you to change settings on the unit from the app. You have to do that as normal, but depending on your choice of viewing software, you may be able to record and edit. The unit does not have a huge Wi-Fi range. I have found within 3 meters is where you need to be. Any further than that and you might get a delay. Also, if you're shooting with the IR on and the Wi-Fi streaming, the battery drains a lot quicker, and that's where spare batteries may come in useful. I am going to give you a little caution. There is no love lost between Chinese factories, and they have very flimsy copyright laws. So there are cheap units out there pretending to be pards. You pay your money, you take your chance. You want a Ferrari, you should buy a Ferrari, not the Ferrari copy, because then you don't actually own a Ferrari. This unit was supplied by Airgun101.com and Airgun101shop.co.uk. That is my business, so please visit them. Airgun101.com is the place for the latest airgun videos from the best creators. If you're doing a Google, just add Airgun101 after the search. Save time, save the fluff, and just 101 it. After all that information then, what have I found that you might need to know about? Well, a couple of things. Firstly, the laser rangefinder. When you get to a pigeon size or smaller, past 90 yards, and it's got something substantially close behind it, like a hedge, the rangefinder doesn't know whether to look at the pigeon or the background. But that is being very picky, mind. The rangefinder does work well. The battery cover is, well, rough. You have to be careful lining up the cover on the thread. It needs something lubey just to help it along a little bit. And shims, the set comes with 2. 5 would be amazing, and it's only thin little pieces of metal. Plus, if you use a picatinny converter to dovetail and use the included mount, it does offset stuff a bit, so you have to shim sideways. It's electronic, so it's prone to the usual faults anything electronic has, and I'm sure other things will pop up. But in the past few weeks, I have got nothing else to report. Final thoughts then. Is it any good? No, really, depending on the choice of the unit, you can be splashing above 600 quid and just below 900 quid. And the answer is yes. You bet it's good. It's revolutionised my winter shooting, and daytime video work is now a doddle. Does it replace a high-end glass unit? Well, the clarity is fabulous, but it does only have a digital zoom. So nope, not quite, but close. However, this does see in the dark, because at sundown with this, you go home. And worst of all, if you cannot shoot at night, you might end up having to watch a plonker on Love Island selling themselves to get famous. Step away from the reality shows late at night. Get outside in the dark. Get a life. Get a pard. That was quite a good ending, I think. Yes. If you've enjoyed the video and found it useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon. Take care. Cheerio.